We're getting ready to get this meeting started. If you have a cell phone, if you could please put it in the silent mode. And if you'd like to speak about an issue either on or off the agenda, you could bring the slip up here to this beautiful young lady on my left, and she'll be happy to pass it on to us. So with that, it's all right, we'll just wait for Chris. I'm ready. Smile.
And no makeup or anything.
Put the mask back on.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, with that, let's get the meeting to order and let's do our pledge of allegiance. Chris, you're late. You get to do the pledge of allegiance.
Please face the flag, place your right hand on your heart, and follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Chris, could I get a roll call?
Commissioner Wolf,
Present.
Commissioner Brzee, Commissioner Beck,
Present.
Commissioner Hicks,
Here.
Commissioner Reckstead, Vice Chair Markarian,
Present.
and Chair Algauer.
Here. Okay, with that, do we have any public comment?
No public comment requests for items that are not on the agenda.
Okay, moving. We have an approval for this consent agenda.
Honorable Chair, the consent agenda includes the minutes from December 16th, 2020, minutes from March 3rd, 2021, and then also a land use compliance review for a freestanding sign associated with a gas station under construction. And then certainly we're happy to provide information. I believe for the December 16th minutes, two of the planning commissioners will have to recuse themselves since they were not present at that meeting.
So who is that?
It would be our newest commissioners, Commissioner Hicks and Commissioner Beck.
Okay. Yeah, so should we go to the March 3rd agenda, minutes for approval?
Certainly, if you guys want to take the items number 2 and 3 and approve them, and then go back for number 1 and approve it with those that aren't abstaining, then that can certainly be the way you guys proceed.
Okay. Then let's go with the March 3rd minutes. We get approval?
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes from March 3rd, 2020.
Do I get a second?
I should say March 3rd, 2021. A typo.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Oh. We have two.
Yeah, correct.
And anyone move to number 3? Or do you want to go back to December?
Your guys' prerogative, both items are consent items, so certainly you can take motions on both.
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 1, meeting minutes from December 16th, 2020.
Motion and second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sustained? Let's move on. Let's move on to number 3, the sign development. Case number 21-029, land use compliance.
Is there a second for that, or?
Do I get a second on that, please?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any objection? Motion carries. I'm confused. Okay, so item number 4 would be the Circle K for Bruce Dickerson. Case number 17-44, CUP, architectural review, and I guess land use.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Planning Commissioners. Before you is case number 17-144. It is a conditional use permit architectural review associated with a fuel center and a gas station with a convenience store, 10 fuel pumps, and then a express car wash, and then also includes the land use compliance review for freestanding and monument signs for said development. The project itself is located at the corner of 12th Street and Yucaipa Boulevard on 3 different parcels that total to 1.89 acres within the city's general commercial land use designation. And essentially, if you look at the map, it is essentially catty corner to the Yucaipa High School entrance. Kind of a bit of background on the subject site. In 1997, case numbers 97023 and 97026 approved a 3-phase development that included a gas station and convenience store and then 2 separate retail buildings. This project was then revived as part of case number 04027 in 2004, and then most recently revived as part of case number 10-015, approved in 2010. The subdivision or tentative parcel map 13992 as part of that original history has since recorded. However, all the other project approvals for that gas station and retail buildings has since expired, and so with that, the applicant has submitted a new project for the subject site, which includes a 5,200 square foot convenience store, fuel station canopy off of Yucaipa Boulevard with 10 different fuel pump stations or 20 different dispensers. Their express car wash will be along the eastern edge of the site, and then also provides required parking spaces for both the convenience store, 2 vacuum spaces to serve the car wash facility, and then also the parking or flow needed to accommodate the fuel station and the patrons that are pumping gas at the facility. And then it should also be noted that a Type 20 ABC license is to be obtained for the site, which would allow for off-site beer and wine sales. As part of the project, they have submitted an architecture review application, and so a color materials board is available. I'm going to pass it up real quick. Color materials board is being presented, but essentially it allows, or the design for the site is kind of a craftsman inspired and barn structure, kind of finished off with a lot of metal finishings on it and kind of neutral colors as part of the site development, and then plenty of kind of roof articulation, and that's also dominated by a primary tower element with a hipped roof, and then a gable tower element at the front of the store, and then also includes additional articulation along the sides and rear of the site. As part of the gas station design, the canopy also integrates the same architectural motifs as the convenience store and carries along the same design to kind of harmonize the site. And then the car wash structure also features the similar design as well to provide a cohesive appearance within the project site. And as part of the project, they have developed a conceptual landscaping plan for the site. As part of the WQMP requirements, a detention basin is located along the rear of the site, providing a buffer from the residences to the south of the property, and then provides landscaping that does exceed the city's development code requirements for the subject site. Then, as noted previously, the applicant has submitted a land use compliance review application for the site for 2 proposed signages, one for each frontage along the 12th Street and Yucaipa Boulevard. The Yucaipa Boulevard site would feature a 25-foot tall freestanding sign with the digital fuel reader, and then a 6-foot monument sign is located on 12th Street. As part of the PDF packet that's online, it does include additional signage for the building. I do want to note quickly that those individual signs for the building are to be permitted separately and would follow the city sign registration requirements at that time. As part of the project review, public was noticed and no public comments were received as part of the project notice or public hearing notice. However, there was some discussions with applicant and the Yucaipa Calamasa Joint Unified School District. And so a letter from that discussion or their kind of approval and some conditions on the site has been passed out for the commission's reference. With that, staff does perhaps recommend that those conditions from the school district be included in the conditions of approval for the conditional use permit. So then that way memorializes some of those conditions or agreements and concessions that the applicant made with the school district. And as part of the project review, it is a subject site on less than 5 acres and does meet the city's development code requirements, and so as such qualifies for an exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to section 15332. And some site photos along 12th Street showing the subject site. Do want to note quickly that right now the curb gutter and driveways have been developed as part of prior street and roadway improvements. However, the proposed use does have the driveways to be relocated, and so the applicant would be responsible for removing that and then reconstructing new driveways and street improvements along the sections that are impacted. And with that, staff does recommend approval of the project, and I am happy to answer any questions. And then the project applicant team is also here for any questions as well.
Anyone have any questions for staff at this time? Okay, would the applicant or his representative?
This microphone here?
You're live.
I'm live, okay. I'm Bruce Dickinson, and back in the late 80s, early 90s, I assembled 5 properties on this corner, one of which was the Valley Inn Bar. I don't know if any of you remember that. It was a full bar, pretty seedy. There were also 3 houses, single-family homes. One of them had a woman who had a sign out in front, fortune-telling. She operated that for many years there. So with the thought of assembling this, we ended up having ARCO interested in buying a portion of the corner and developing a gas mini-mart there in the early 90s, 1990, I think it was. During that time, we met with the school board and proposed this use. They wanted to also sell beer and wine at that location. And in the meeting with the Yucaipa Calamasa Joint Unified School District, I think at that time it was only Yucaipa Joint Unified School District, they also set out some conditions for their concerns and drafted a letter to John McMains, the development or the planning director at that time, in a letter that was dated December 1991. ARCO then went away, and so the property sat for a while, and then I decided to go ahead and draft plans and apply for a conditional use permit for a gas mini-mart on the corner with 2 retail buildings, one fronting on Yucaipa Boulevard and the other on 12th Street. Those 2 retail buildings totaled square footage of about 20,000 square feet with the gas mini-mart on the corner. As Ben has pointed out, the timing just wasn't right, and the anchor tenant never came up. And so those plans expired, and this is the 4th time I'm appearing before you with the same proposed use on the corner as was approved in the prior 3 applications for gas mini-mart on the corner. With the, as Ben also pointed out, I took the 5 parcels and consolidated them into 3 parcels with the recording of a parcel map. And with this project, Circle K is interested in taking on the whole site, and so there would be a further consolidation of the 3 parcels to 1 parcel, which would be part of, assuming that this was approved, what we would be doing. I think there's a big benefit having one use on this very high-profile corner across the street from the high school. I have 4 kids myself. I know how kids can be. They're all grown now and have been through all of that. And the thought of having a corporate tenant, corporate-owned tenant, a national corporate tenant, being the only one responsible for what goes on this corner, I think is a benefit to the city and to the high school, rather than having multiple tenants as was previously proposed. We later, as Ben said, met with Callie Binks, the superintendent of the Yucaipa Joint School District. Listened to her concerns about the use of beer and wine and the site in general, and as he pointed out, you have a letter from her. She met with the school board and discussed the project. We showed her the plans and the uses, and that results in the letter, and you can see on the second to last sentence where it, well, if I can read it to you. It says, "I appreciate the support of the city and council in ensuring that our youth are a priority. I am pleased that the district is able to support a new business in Yucaipa and build a partnership that will in turn support us. We have reviewed all the draft conditions of approval, including the conditions that this letter from Callie Binks has proposed for the project, and we are in agreement with all of them. I'm happy to answer any questions. I just might also point out that I do and have always known about this site being directly across from the high school, how important it is to have a good partnership with the high school, the school district, and the city. And so that is what I know Circle K will, a national tenant, will be looking forward to ensuring. Happy to answer questions, and with that, I can then also turn it over to the representatives for Circle K that will actually be doing the operations for it.
Let me ask you, with this letter from the school district, have you signed an agreement with this in it, incorporated with it? I mean, has Circle K signed the agreement?
Well, Neil Fitzsimon, who is here, who's a representative with Circle K, he and I met with Callie, and these conditions are what we are comfortable agreeing to.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions. Thank you for the presentation for this business to our city. We, the commission, looked at a project just down the boulevard on 13th Street in the last 3 or 4 months. It's a coffee shop, Dutch Boys Coffee, right there by the fire station. One of the big concerns of the commission at the time, in fact, the primary concern was traffic. That 12th Street goes right into the main entrance to the high school.
Right.
Can you give us whatever thoughts you have as far as, apparently the school district was not worried about it, it wasn't mentioned at all in his letter. Was there some discussion about it with the district, or anything you can do to help us on the traffic?
Well, I'll tell you, I did go door to door talking with residents on 13th Street, and a lot of them did have concerns with traffic, but their concern is right now the traffic with people speeding down 13th Street because of, I guess they're very long blocks, and so you end up having a long distance that they can go and speed. There was the thought of possibly proposing speed bumps. I had mentioned that to Ray Casey when we had our meeting along there. I do know that where my kids go to, or went to high school, they had speed bumps close by there. that was a thought. As far as the overall traffic for this project, I would maintain that with the previous approvals of 20,000 square feet of retail plus the gas mini mart, I mean, with this only singular use here, there should be, I would imagine, a lot less traffic generated for the approval of this rather than the approval of all of those additional square footage uses. I do know, way back, I did a traffic study. I was required to do one, and I think that was at the very first approval, but I think the city has done several traffic studies probably since then. Ben, you could maybe address that. I don't know. But I just know that for what we're proposing, the one use should be less traffic generated, short of not developing anything on it.
Just as a point of, I guess, clarification, right now we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with some of the mics. So Commissioner Brzee and Retsted, apparently yours aren't working live, and so we may have to kind of double up for some of the discussion points. So I do apologize for that, but
Is mine working? Because I'm pressing testing, no?
and then maybe the three. I know these two aren't working, and I think some of those are on the fritz right now. So it's
That works.
so you may have to buddy up with a mic, and so I do apologize for that.
Sir, I have two questions. Number one, how long until you can start this project?
I think we're, well, Circle K would be the ones taking that. I will still own it. It's a lease to them, but they're eager, I believe, to start as soon as possible.
So do we think this is a project that's going to be, 21 years away,
Oh,
like
no,
some of the
no.
others, or do we think this is something that's going to happen in the near future?
The previous approvals, I did not have the anchor tenant. I was always, and it's, I actually did pull building permits on the other two retail buildings, and then the Great Recession hit, and I tried to keep the permits alive with inspections every 6 months, but then finally gave up on that. But no, this is something that will move forward quickly. This is Bill. Introduce yourself.
My name is Bill Scarborough with Land Development Consultants here on behalf of Circle K. How quickly we can move forward is if we gain approval this evening, we're going to start the permitting process. So we would be ready to construct as soon as we're through permits. So right now we're early 21. I would suggest that we be under construction this year, late this year. Correct. It's about a 6 to 8 month build from start to finish.
Okay. And then the other question I have is, with convenience stores typically convenience stores typically bring in transients. Is there any type of, because this is across the street from a school, is there any type of contingency in dealing with the homeless population that might be loitering, pulling bottles, pulling cans, peddling in the parking lot, doing typically what we see as far as no trespassing orders, good surveillance system? What is your guys' contingency for that? Because my concern is, with it being across the street from a school, being in law enforcement, which is what I do for a living, and knowing that a lot of homeless have a 290 registrant, sex registrant background, my only concern is safety-wise. I like the project. I don't have a problem with where it is. I just want to see that there's some type of, you guys are taking this into account, the safety of our students that are going to be across the street.
Absolutely, sir. In fact, we have Neil Fitzsimons here and the regional operations manager. So we're going to try to socially distance and answer your questions.
Okay.
Hi, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Cynthia Enriquez, the Director of Operations for the Southern California, mostly Inland Empire area. So I oversee close to 100 of these stores that we're planning to hopefully build here in Yucaipa. In reference to your question, we are as much concerned as you are, and that's why we have a huge focus in reference to security systems, very big on lighting. making sure not only your students, our customers, and our employees are safe, right? Because those employees tend to be members of this community. So we want to make sure that our surveillance cameras are zooming in. We make sure we have a really good relationship with law enforcement so that if at any point in time there's any kind of individuals that are, homeless community, that we try to control it as much as possible. We go above and beyond that as well. If we know that as we start kind of building the location, we see that there is a potential for high traffic with the homeless. We put keypads on our restrooms so they don't think, okay, well, now I can go in there and maybe use this as my restroom or sleeping area. We also try to lock our garbage areas, our big cans, so that they're not going in there and trying to loiter and gain access to that as well. So we are as much concerned as you are and make sure that we have every step of the way to protect our community and the children.
And then for the ABC stuff, is your employees, or are your employees, I should say, going to be trained? Are they going to go through the ABC training to ensure, I used to run ABC ops all the time at these places.
Yeah.
To ensure that when a kid decides they want to walk across the street and try to purchase tobacco, alcohol, again, it's more has to do with the access. When I moved to this town in 2003, there was constantly kids across the street at that shopping center. You always saw them on their skateboards. That's what they do. When school gets back in session, you're going to see kids hanging out, flooding your parking lot, and hanging out, all the way down to the Mana's Donuts all the time. And that's not a bad thing. It's just making sure that your staff is aware that, the access that these kids have nowadays.
Yes, correct. And so they are required to do the ABC licensing as new employees, and they're also required to do it in recertification. So every 6 months, we do require a recertification for some of our prominent policies, specifically trainings like ABC. Sexual harassment is another topic that we have as well. Not only that, we do internal stings. I know we have external stings that occur, but Circle K corporate, we do have internal stings. And what happens in those cases, if one of our internal stings is a failure, that employee is required to retake the training and they are suspended for 3 days. If they fail another internal sting, they're immediately terminated due to that. If they fail an external sting, that's an immediate termination. So we don't, and this sits very close to my heart because I was actually the director of human resources for the entire business from the West Coast all the way up to Eastern Washington, all the way south to San Diego. So that was huge for us, making sure our employees were not only taking the training, recertified, and followed the processes that are required to make sure not only that our employees are following that, but that our community is safe.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you guys went with our theme. So
I have a question. Just again on the homeless and the kids in congregating, the infiltration basin in the rear and also around the trash enclosures, there's a lot of area there to hide. And I'm just wondering, is there any fencing? I don't see any fencing proposed for any of that, but to limit access to that, because I know that's going to be a spot.
Currently, there is no fencing in those specific areas, but we're happy to look at those areas and see what we can do to tighten up security for you.
Right. Yeah, I actually did run a business on the boulevard, so I know what the issues can be. And so the less area you provide for them, the better off you are. And I don't know what your access, as far as fire access on the back of the building, but if there could be some type of fencing to secure that area a little bit, or that's just, it's hidden behind the building and it's depressed. So they're going to be sitting back there and and that's one of the problems I have with infiltration basins, that even though it doesn't meet the requirement for the depth, that you have to fence it because of the depth of it and potential for water, but it's still a congregating area, especially with high school students and with homeless. So just one of my questions. I know, and even the back of the trash enclosure in the back of not so much the car wash because you have direct view off the boulevard, but that trash enclosure is another spot. And it's such a large lot, which is a great thing for access, but also just can create some of those problems, so.
We're happy to work with staff.
Yeah.
Are you guys opposed to, like Commissioner said, fencing that in?
Behind the store and the trash enclosure. We have done it in the past, and I don't foresee any issue with that.
You could make that a condition,
Yeah.
but in order for approval, they have to do
If
that.
you'd like to add that as a condition, we'd be.
Just to limit
Okay, we'll
access
give-
and be,
Anyone else?
want to be able to see through it, so chain link, I think, is good for it, but.
T-block or steel or something like that, a little bit more ornate than chain link, but yeah, that can certainly be.
Chris, you have something?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay, or do I need to switch to the mic? I'm a soft-spoken guy, so excuse me.
There you
I
go.
think to switch with the mic just so it gets picked up on the recorder.
All right, is it better? I appreciate all the efforts you guys are putting in to make sure our kids are safe. I have a freshman in that high school now, so it really hits hard for me. My question is along the sides. I know you said you are the director of operations of about 100 safe Circle Ks,
Correct.
and how many of them are near a school?
I don't have the exact number right now, but we do have, I would say about 10 to 15 around a school. And just as much, I mean, I don't have a teenager, but I have a 4-year-old who will eventually be a teenager. And I was in a low income community as a child, and I had access to, unfortunately, really bad situations across from my high school. Luckily, I was able to get out of that. So that is a huge passion for me, to make sure that we take care of our kids at large, right? And so not only is it where we're focusing in reference to the ABC, but we at Circle K are big on creating collaborations. So right now with the surge of coronavirus, or COVID, sorry, we are now with our local schools that are in the area. We have donations in reference to our PPE products for the staff, for children, making sure that they're safe. Unfortunately, we do, I serve a very low income community. I have Victorville, I have Moreno Valley, I have, a lot of areas that, like Elsinore, that they don't have the access like we do. So what we try to do is we help the community at large. Another program we have is for the fuel. In the past, what we've done is Fuel Our Schools, which creates a donation to the school. And usually we partner up with one of the, like the football team or something, to see if maybe we can do as you fuel in one of our dispensers, some of that money goes back. So, for us, it is a priority that we take care of the kids. It's a priority for me, for my child, so I want to make sure that we take care of the children.
And I appreciate that. So your human resource background may answer this next question.
Okay.
Are the standards for hiring and training the same at the Circle Ks that are not near school from the ones that are near or across the street from schools? So do you, for example, do live scan for employees that are going to work across the street from school?
So all of our employees have to pass a background check. It doesn't matter where they are. The reason why is, and I understand the priority in front of a school, but for me, it's a priority to the community. So if in the future, right, we had an opportunity to open a store somewhere else in Yucaipa, I would want all of your community to be protected. But obviously, especially in front of a school, we do background checks. If there's any kind of failure, the employee is not hired. Not only that, there's a certain standard that they have to meet with their questions and the background that they pass when they do their testing with us. And what I mean by that is sometimes there's some people that have, that can be a little explosive. And the last thing that we need is for a student to be out there and an employee to walk out and take it out on them because they had a bad day. So any of those red flags to us, they're immediately caught, and we don't bring in those individuals into our stores.
So do they have any certain training or qualification because they are near children? Or are they the same training and qualification as any Circle K employee?
They're the same across the board. The main reason is our customers they come in with children on a constant basis, right? So I want to make sure that the Circle K that has absolutely no school in their general radius is treating a child, a teenager, an adult with the same respect as if they were across the street from a high school. All of our employees should be held to the same standard, and the public should hold them to the same standard.
Thank you.
And out of all those other Circle Ks that are in, close to the schools, do you lock all of those refrigeration units in every store?
Not at all of them, because mind you, I've been in position for 6 months. I've been with Circle K for about 7 years. But some of these stores were built in the past. Some of them we have started putting in the lock system as we see the population of kids coming around, or you have that friend who's coming in and purchasing a product. We're quick to lock our locks on our liquor. I'm sorry, on our beer areas, right?
Well, so the thought behind this, I guess, is a student would run in there, grab a 12-pack of beer and run out right across the street from the school. Isn't that the same as a bank robber robbing the bank across the street from a police station? I mean, why would you, it doesn't make sense to locking this up when you got a gas station up the street, Blair. They sell beer. Are their coolers locked? No. You got Arnett's of Smoke. They sell beer and liquor right across the street from the high school.
Hard liquor. Hard liquor as well.
And they have hard liquor, and it's in the open. So why aren't they being mandated? I guess I'm gonna go back to the staff with this. Why are we going to mandate those other locations now? Are we setting a precedence that from now on, anybody within a certain distance of the school, and all three of you would be within the same distance? So I'm sorry, I'm having my hard time wrapping my arms around that one.
I don't think staff is necessarily recommending, right? What the letter from the school district, staff isn't, this is not a part of.
Staff did not require this, no.
So this is just a letter from the school district, whether we want to condition this or not.
Well, I think this is an agreement between them already. This is not whether we want to condition it or not. This is a letter saying they have reached an agreement, they just want us to be aware of this. It's a verbal agreement. Yeah, between.
Between you guys and the school district.
Yeah, so
But
this-
This has
we
nothing to do with us.
we don't have to condition this in any proposal we make.
I think ABC, if it's a condition they've agreed to, it's gonna be in the ABC license, because they have the
Well-
jurisdiction and the enforcement authority of it.
As the neighbor, the
Right.
high school being the neighbor. so
Right,
that's-
because there is a requirement, anything within 1,000 feet of a school has to have special approval.
Then how come the other locations don't have this?
Well, within 1,000 feet, so maybe they're past the 1,000 feet, I'm not sure. So I do have a question on the locking system. There's two types. There's manual locks, then there's an automatic time block system. Are you
It would be an
proposing-
automatic.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then that creates, if a customer comes in and, so that it doesn't, create a hostile environment for anybody there, right? If the customer yells, hey, I'm gonna grab, the employee can pop the locks
So,
open.
Mr. Chairman, that's actually what it says in here. It's an automatic locking system, so if a customer comes in, shows ID, wants to purchase beer, even during that time, they can hit the lock, open the door, and they can get their beer out of it, so. It's
Yeah,
not
and
a,
it's
it's
right
not
at the
a,
register.
it's not a, you
And I
cannot sell.
don't have a problem with the locking system. What I have a problem with is how can you let two other locations that are with 1,000 feet? Because if you look at the school district, it runs all the way from the golf course clear down to 13th Street.
It's true.
And that puts everybody within that range. So why can't we then let's say, hey, staff needs to say, look, you have to put a locking system as we did over at Circle K. You're setting precedents here.
So I guess I can kind of back up and cover a few of the different comments. One, so again, the comment letter from the school district or the agreement is what they have. And in order to provide the staff the enforceability of those agreements, then it would be carried on a condition of approval. So if it's not including the conditions, then that's certainly fine. We just wouldn't be able to use code enforcement to address if they were in violation of that agreement with the school district. And that's certainly, I think, the planning commissioner's prerogative if they want that mechanism in place or not. The other uses nearby certainly predate, and so whenever they were permitted, some of the stores, I think, predate city and corporation. So whenever that was permitted and what the rules were in effect at that time, that's what they're kind of, quote unquote, grandfathered into. There are potential ordinances where cities can do a deemed approved ordinance and kind of retroactively address problem child alcohol establishments and provide regulations. But as part of this activity, that's not being proposed. That would be a policy decision that city council would have to direct us to. And as far as I know, that's not something that has been recommended or suggested to staff to pursue. So the existing establishments don't have that in this case because it is a new one. The school district had worked out an agreement with the Circle K operator for that. And then certainly as part of the conditions, if Plan Commission would like staff or code enforcement to have the ability to enforce that agreement, then it would be carried over into the conditions of approval for this project, which it sounds like Circle K is certainly amendable to if that is the prerogative of Planning Commission.
Yeah, but did they do it freely or when you're trying to get a project, they can go, look, if you don't give us this, we're gonna block your project I don't know what was processed and I don't have a problem with them doing it. I have a problem with why are we only targeting Kmart or Circle K and not targeting the other locations that are still within that 1,000 feet?
So part of it is this is a new ABC license that's being pursued, and so as part of that, they reach out to ABC. And ABC does notify, surrounding properties, do the public hearing notice, and reaches out to the school district. So as part of that process, as a new establishment, they're initiating the contact, and certainly as through that process, a concerned citizen or entity can certainly reach out to ABC and voice their concern about another establishment. And so it sounds like in whatever discussions that they had with the school district, they worked through a solution that was amendable to those parties.
But I do know that ABC also conditions their licenses. So if there's an objection or an agreement with the school district, I think ABC being the licensing board and the enforcement division, they're
Yeah,
the
but
ones
would
that will
ABC
condition that.
say, we're only gonna make
Right.
this, wouldn't they say, this is everybody within that school district?
No, they're gonna say this project, because again, those others are grandfathered in there previously, but anything in the future is gonna come with it. But like, to your point, I think is, if we don't condition it, then we're not setting the precedents. And they have the agreement. I know ABC is gonna condition it based on the agreement if there's any objection by the school district. And if the school district's willing to do this, then they're gonna allow it to go forward with that condition.
I just do not want to condition this.
I think though, JR, for one of your concerns, but you have to, if you put it in perspective to other projects, right? Let's talk about a car wash with the dryers. In the past, this is what we allowed. Now, every time a car wash comes to us for approval, the decibel rating has changed, everything has changed. And the conditions for us to approve a new car wash because of the drying mechanisms is completely different than the mechanisms that were used to approve, let's say the one that's on, 14th in Yucaipa Boulevard in the back, which we're constantly getting complaints on because we can't force them to today's standards. So this project, what they're doing is, and somebody who has, that's what I do for a living, is crimes against kids, is they're looking at it from a perspective of what can we do to appease the community, in my opinion, what can we do to appease the community so we can get this project pushed through and make it appear as if we're doing everything we can to try to prevent children from coming in and purchasing and or stealing alcohol, from having somebody else come in and do it for them. So they're more focused on, and reading this with the school district, with the kids, the students of the school, not necessarily sales of alcohol. They're still gonna sell alcohol. It's just, in order to do that, they're trying, being across the street from the school, they're saying, look we're willing to do this because the school district is worried that we're gonna have a location across the street that sells alcohol and tobacco. And as a result, we're gonna do what we can to mitigate the fact that we might get students in there who are gonna try to purchase and/or steal those products. And I think that's what they're doing. And so I like what you guys are doing. Now, whether or not we make it a requirement or not, I understand that aspect too. I don't know if that's our role necessarily as a planning commission when we're talking about agriculture. I can't say it. But go
Is
ahead,
that,
Chris.
is the intent, Ben, to incorporate this into our findings, or?
It was offered as a suggestion that in order for staff, for the city itself to enforce those provisions, then if it's a condition of approval, then we have that to provide that enforcement mechanism. There may be other entities such as ABC that have their own enforceability, but in terms of if someone calls the city and says, hey, we noticed there's an issue going on here, the way we would have enforceability, or at least ability to get in the door to abate that concern, is if it's part of the conditions of approval for the project on our end. If not, we will refer it to ABC on that end as well.
So if I'm a student or if I'm a parent and I'm at Circle K after school and I'm inside and I'm buying whatever I'm buying, and I see a group of kids walk in, and let's say there's 7 of them, and 2 of them try to distract the employee, and another one goes and takes a 40 of something out of the cooler, and then walks out with it. And as I'm that parent, and I see this, I'm like, wait a minute, I thought this place was supposed to have these locked when these kids came in here, which would have prevented this from occurring. And so if we don't condition this, the city can't follow up with that and do anything about it,
We would just refer it to the appropriate agency that has that agreement in place.
which would be
ABC.
ABC.
And why not let ABC do their job? Why should we start doing it for them? If they want to mandate that, let them deal with it
Well-
on that level.
I think as a planning commission who considers our only high school in town, we have some level of responsibility to make sure that there's another barrier between a bad kid and alcohol. And yeah, and I don't see the problem with this. I don't think they have a problem if we conditioned it. I think staff anticipates us conditioning it. I don't see a problem if we were to condition it as an approval. Now, I did notice that this letter from the superintendent is addressed to the city council. It's not to the planning commission. It says, I appreciate the support of the city.
Right.
and
Wait.
Council.
It says city manager, Ray Casey.
Yes, so this is a letter that was given to us, that was given to Mr. Casey. So that's it. I mean, we don't have to, the letter wasn't addressed to us.
I think you're thinking too deeply into this. I like the automatic locking mechanisms. Again, to just keep that one kid that's having a bad day from, God forbid, putting Yucaipa in the news like.
So
every other day.
he walks half a block up the street to Valera and does it.
He's not gonna get it from this Circle K that we're approving.
By the way, the Valero was approved when the city was incorporated. But if I could just say, I think we're, not to speak on behalf of Neil, but we were both in the meeting. We're comfortable with the condition. I think it would be our wish to have it enforced by ABC rather than a condition of approval with the city. But I know that the city, the ABC and the licensing, when they review it, will have a copy of this letter, as well as probably a letter from the city as well.
Well, it appears to me from this letter that you guys are gonna have something in exchange for that locking system. It sounds like the school wants to work closely with you, hopefully promoting your business and making up whatever you may lose or delay selling in alcohol. I don't think anyone is gonna be complaining if someone is as young as JR and he wants to come and buy a beer when all these 14, 15, 16-year-old kids are running around. I don't think he's gonna complain if he waited another 30 seconds to unlock the cooler and get his beer.
Yeah, but
Well, then you never know on what kind of day we catch you out.
So if you pass this motion or something, it would make this part of it. That puts the city now has to enforce this. why I don't want to start using city staff, code enforcement, whatever, to enforce this. Now, if ABC agreed to this, let ABC enforce it.
Well,
But why should we have to put our man hours out there to enforce it?
It's the only high school in town, JR. If we don't put our
Then
city
ABC will do it.
But no, JR, so when it comes to ABC, anybody work with ABC?
well,
Okay.
I
so-
work with them all the time, like
Okay,
with
so for
functions.
ABC, there's like 6 agents for Riverside and San Bernardino County. There's not very many. So they have the whole, what do we have, 5 million people in these 2 counties? And they have a handful of people that work for them, that are agents that actually go out and do this stuff. So and what they do, they will enforce it, but they're more enforcing the sale of alcohol to minors. Code enforcement is gonna go out there and say, hey, you guys need to make sure that these are locked when kids are coming in here. That's what they're enforcing, not necessarily the
Is
sale of
this asking
alcohol.
us to incorporate it? No,
So, and that's,
information only.
okay, and that's my question with this letter. This, to me, this letter is information only. This
That's
is
right.
just them telling us this is what we're gonna do.
That's what I'm saying.
So this is not a letter asking us,
No, nowhere does that letter say, well,
we didn't need to get this letter. So I like this,
for
but I
information.
don't know if it's even within the powers of the planning commission to incorporate this into approval if this is simply a letter from the school district to the city manager saying, we're excited to work together and we figured this out. Like,
this-
why was this brought to the planning commission's?
That's my fault. I asked Ben to provide this letter to all of you for information purposes, not to have it incorporated into the conditions of approval.
So,
It was my
so
directive to him to,
So legally, my question is, can we even legally incorporate this? This isn't a safety issue, right? It's not we need to put up, I like the idea of saying for conditions of approval, they have to secure the area that we know that people can congregate, transients can live.
I like that idea.
But we have a reason to say we're doing that. There's, it doesn't match the exterior, it doesn't match the general plan, it doesn't match whatever it is, it doesn't match, there's safety issues. This has nothing to do with the project.
It's an
you guys
information
have-
item, and I think we're taking this thing too far,
So
so.
If I'm.
I like it,
Yeah.
unlike JR, I like this. However, I don't know if it's in our legality to
If I may.
prove it or not.
Interject a little bit. As part of a conditional use permit, you guys are certainly evaluating the use and the characteristics of the operation of that use. So any conditions that govern the operational characteristics of the site that help you achieve meeting the findings of approval is within the scope of the plan commission. So certainly, if it isn't something that is germane as part of our approval package, then we don't need to include it. But you certainly also have the flexibility to include such provisions, and other cities and jurisdictions certainly do include provisions for alcohol sale.
Does that mean that I can tell them that you guys aren't allowed to sell 96 gas? I mean, is that,
reason, I think if you have a reason to support
you know what I'm
that's-
saying?
Yeah, I mean.
we might
again,
appeal that condition.
I know.
Well,
I just-
and to the point that you had made, unfortunately, I've had to deal with different situations with the cities, being in operations where the city council is uncomfortable about the place that they're being put in, because this specifically states that we're locking when the students are coming in, when they're coming into school, and when they're being dismissed. You'll have people that because they come in at 5:45 and they saw the thing was unlocked, they're gonna call and they're gonna file a complaint. Well, that's not the exact time, right? And then there's not enough, they weren't happy, so all of a sudden, they start congregating outside, they start picketing, this whole thing, you guys said that you were gonna, enforce this, well, yeah, but the hours weren't, well, what were the exact hours? We've had an issue with that with the city of Victorville with a couple of situations, and the city mayor came over and she said, I wish I would have never put that in there because we've just gotten bombarded. Where with us as a corporate-owned company, we are, attesting to you, and we're here in front of you saying, we're gonna put those locks. It's not something that's gonna go away. We wanna make sure that we're working with the high school. We wanna make sure that we're taking care of the kids, and that doesn't add time to your schedule of, are you enforcing something because it came in at, a customer came in at 6 o'clock and saw that the things weren't locked. Well, that's past that dismissal time, right? So for me, it's a valid point that you just don't want to add, because I know how it gets, and
Right.
being a member of Rancho Cucamonga, I see how things go crazy over there when one little thing goes out of line, and then it adds so many hours to your schedule as well.
So the only thing I have to say about that, I'm comfortable with not making it a condition as well. So long as, this discussion is on the record. We trust Circle K. I love Circle K. I travel the country, go to Circle K all the time. That you guys know you're across the street from the only high school in this town.
Yep.
We love our kids, whether it's my kid or,
Don't
I don't
love
like
your
JR's
kids.
kids, but
I don't
any
like
other
your
kids,
kids
I'm
either.
okay. So as long as we're all on the same page, you guys do what you have to do. And just like he has experience in dealing with crimes against children, I'm an attorney, and I don't
Yeah.
want to see a lawsuit.
Yeah. No.
Definitely not involved in the city or Circle K regarding these issues.
Yeah.
So with that being said,
Okay, anyone else, have questions for the applicant? Go for it, Lloyd.
I was just curious about the statement that the superintendent had made where Circle K partners with the high school to benefit the youth, and I was wondering, what will that look like?
That was a little bit about what I spoke about earlier. Sorry, I'm short. What we spoke about earlier, where, for example, if for the PPE products right now, if the school was in need, if the Circle K was open, we would do donations to the school. Another aspect that we've done in the past, it was called Fuels for Schools. Due to COVID, there was a pause on it, but what we would do is one of our dispensers was basically wrapped with the school's logo, and whenever anybody came in and fueled, a percentage of the fuel sales went to that program. My local store in Rancho Cucamonga, they partnered up with the local high school. The marching band came out, they played, the cheerleaders were there. We did like a food thing with the community, and then they were able to get all of the benefits from that full day of fuel sales, or that time period that we had set up. Another thing that we've done in the past also is they can come in and say, hey, we want to partner up with coffee, or maybe like a car wash. And some of our local stores have done that as well. Like, can we do a car wash card with the school? We want to make, we want to help a benefit. For me, I used to be in band, I used to be in different aspects. And for us, it was like trying to get the local support from the stores. So it would be items like that where we would partner up to help raise funds.
Also, I noticed that during arrival and dismissal, the refrigeration section containing alcohol and wine. But as I recall, being in convenience stores, there's alcohol every place. And it's not just, I go back to what was asked earlier, what's to stop students from ripping off a 12-pack that's just sitting there, not in a refrigerator? I know that corner can't sit vacant. I've lived in town for 34 years, and it's been vacant, I think, almost the whole time. I know it can't sit there forever. I'm just not.
I had a lot of buildings on it before.
I know it did.
Including that bar.
Yeah, I know, yeah, you're right. I'm just not convinced that this project is good across the street from the high school.
So one of the big,
Risks.
so one of the big,
Let me just say one more thing. I appreciate the high-level management assuring us that there will be enforcement. And we can sit here tonight and pontificate about how secure everything is gonna be. I also know, and I don't wanna be misinterpreted or misconstrued, but I know the general makeup of employees in fast food, in these type of establishments. And understandably, if somebody steals something, they're not gonna go after them. They can't. They can't do a blessed thing. And so this to me is just, this is Pandora's box, right across from the high school. And we got good kids, but this kind of a project can take a few kids who are good kids or maybe struggling kids and really create problems. I know it may fit within the general plan. I don't care about the general plan. That's a general and it's a plan. It can be, you know, all that stuff. I'm not in favor of the project, only because of the type of enterprise that it is.
And so just wanted to give you, answer some of your points. Our newer builds, our newer stores, they're built a little bit different. Obviously, it's not only to protect the customer and the students at large and children, but also because we see, as you saw the building on the outside, that's what we're moving to, right? A cleaner, more open aspect, right, to our stores. So for our beer and our hard seltzers, anything like that, there's a huge beer cave now. So as our delivery, our vendors come in, they're stocking that, and that would have a main door that locks. That's part of the locking system to this beer cave. If, because obviously there's situations that we aren't necessarily in future focus of that may come up. Something that comes up is what we see at the grocery stores, right? Which you can go into a Stater Brothers that's down the street, that they build that big pyramid of beers or whatever. It would be for us, one, if that type of a little thing gets popped up, we're looking at putting it somewhere where it's not accessible, that kid can run in and grab and run and go. That's not what our focus is. And the other thing, I mean, that child would really need to be focused on moving heavy packs out of the way just to pull one out if we had a display item like that. But anything that's grab and go, even the warm products, they're not out in the area anymore. So if you go see some of our newer builds, I'm trying to think, the closest one is probably going to be Corona. Yeah, so if you go out there, you can see most of our stuff is, if not all of our products, is in the beer cave, just because the customer doesn't want to buy hot beer. They don't want to buy hard seltzers. It's not selling. That's not the product we're selling. What's selling is what's in the coolers. So for us, it's not incentivized to keep it out there. Like I said, if anything, it's because, hey, there's a Super Bowl party coming in, the Super Bowl starting, and Bud Light asks us, can we build a display item for you? Again, that's a heavy display item. Somebody really has to be, and at that point, if a CSR isn't focused on viewing that, there's a problem. And the second point that I want to attest to, I know that you're saying I'm upper management. I started with this company as a specialist, HR specialist with this company. Not just that, all of our employees that have developed within the organization, that's something we pride ourselves on. They started off as CSRs. Our vice president of operations in Arizona started off as a CSR here in California. Our customer service representative. And our current vice president, although he didn't start with Circle K, he's been in the fuel industry and he started off as a customer service representative. My first job was in a QSR. So although our big thing, and that's one of the things that I can attest to here, is we're big on hiring people that we can develop and grow in the organization. So we're not just hiring the first person that comes off of the street. For me, it's what's going to benefit the community, because we want to be known as a good partner. And how can we develop our employees to be the next person? So I'm not just going to hire just anybody to hire to not protect the community.
But I think we can certainly agree that a person working in a Circle K or an establishment like that will not have the same ownership of passion that developers have. It's just not going to be there. I mean, I've been in enough of these type of establishments to know that, and it's an entry-level job. Unless you're paying more than minimum wage, it's an entry-level job, and then you're going to, and it's appropriate that that's the kind of person you're going to get. But this kind of establishment, to me, is just not a good
Now,
fits across.
are you
Okay.
guys open to making it a condition that you're not allowed to have alcohol on the outside of the coolers?
That's gonna be.
I'm not saying you have to, I'm just asking you, and if you are, then would that appease Lloyd and his concerns?
Or at least have all the alcohol and liquor locked or not accessible.
But you wouldn't be able to have a display, a
Well,
beer
then we're
display.
back to.
Okay, let's,
Trying to condition something that we don't have.
gentlemen, hold, one at a time here.
Can I, so as Circle K, is it a corporate store? So it's not a franchisee store, not gonna be passed on. And then two, in the past, I know ABC had conditions for gas stations. One, you couldn't, post beer sale ads in view of the pumps. Is that still a condition of ABC?
Yes, it is.
And then also you couldn't display where it was visible through a window, to the fuel area. Is that still, it had to be below view or in the back? Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that's still a condition. So there's certain things with ABC, and then to your point on convenience stores, I'd much rather have a corporate Circle K or 7-Eleven because they do hire a lot better than, and even though it's not a corporate store, the Circle K that was just built in Calamasa, that's one of my regular stops, and they do have a better group of employees than you see at a privately owned off-brand gas station. So, I mean, just my, my observation of it. So if we're gonna put something on that corner, I would be more inclined to support a corporate Circle K.
Mr. Beck, we haven't heard from you. You want to weigh in on something here?
I've been listening to you guys. You guys have been answering all my
I'm sure you got a
questions, too.
question or a statement.
No, I had just a question on that retention basin about fencing it off. We work in a lot of cities and we see a lot of homeless living in those. But,
Yeah, we have a really big, huge, popular one down there in the Palm Desert, where they're dropping off busloads of them, and we've learned to contain it with, like you said, gating. And the big thing is our employees are going to be members of this community. So that's why we're huge on making sure the lighting is there, the cameras are there. We want to make sure they are protected, because as a prior director of human resources, I couldn't sleep if I didn't know my employees weren't going to go home to their families that evening.
Okay, with that, Bart, we haven't heard from you. Do you have anything you'd like to?
Actually, you have heard from me on the traffic, so,
Oh, okay.
and all the other issues have been worked through, I'm comfortable.
Okay, Lloyd.
One last question, is it 24 hours?
Yes.
Is there a minimum staff requirement for the facility? How many employees will be at all times?
There isn't a minimum, but for the size of that store, we're usually looking at at the minimum, about 2 employees that are staffed, and that's just low sales, very minimal sales. But at the same time, it's for the protection of our employees, and that varies. So I can't guarantee that today it's 2, tomorrow it's 1, or maybe 3, right? If something happens where it's crime, even though we have low sales, but we want to protect the employees and the community at large, there is flexibility that we as management make sure that it's being done.
And obviously, you guys will pass down to the employees some form of communication with the school district. For example, if they do have an event, a football game or something, you would staff it with the required or at least appropriate number of employees rather than 2.
Yes, no. And for busy hours, I'm talking about the minimal hours, right? But for busy times, we're talking anywhere between 4 to 7 employees that are there. This would be an FFF site, which I'm not sure if you're aware, it's a fresh food fast, which is something that speaks to helping the community. We're not just somebody who's gonna be, having a bag of chips. It's warm sandwiches for kids who may not be able to stop and grab a warm breakfast, and they're usually 2 for $3, and there's egg sandwich, like they're protein based. But a big thing is we get busy because people want that product. So we're talking about food cookers, we're talking about people in the cashiering area, and then we're talking about making sure we're in stock.
And I guess to this line of item, are the prices gonna be something that's set corporately, or is it gonna be different because it's gonna attract a lot of teenagers that may
No,
pay
it's
anything?
corporate. So like to the point that you made, this isn't a franchise site, so where they have the ability to fluctuate on the pricing, we follow corporate planning. So my store will be no different than another local store, but there is localized pricing. So what I mean by that is, let's say we're in an area where there's it just is less a lower income. They may see a drop in their pricing to help the community at large because we are in a lower income area.
All right,
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
thank you all.
Ben, do we have any public comments?
We have two. The first is Joe Irvin.
Could you please say your name and address for the record, sir?
Joe Irwin, 123 2913th Street. I'm gonna sound a lot like the chair. I don't have a problem with it going there. I raised my kids in that area. But it's good that they're gonna work with the school, but I don't think they should have to partner with the school. They have their own system to keep the kids safe, and that's in their best interest. I think we should leave them alone and let them do what's right. They've described it. They're willing to lock it and do everything. But my God, this is still supposed to be America. We're supposed to have some freedoms and some rights. This is government getting into individual businesses, which I think may be overstepping the boundaries.
Thank you, sir. Ben?
The next comment is Bobby Duncan.
Could you state your name and address for our records, sir, so we know who you are?
Make sure he knows only.
Honorable Commissioners, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm appearing here tonight as a citizen of this wonderful city. I live at 35212 Avenue C in Yucaipa, and I'm opposed to this city adding conditions to this approval. It's unlawful to sell alcohol to minors. That's a law. That's not supposed to happen. This corporation, if they allow that, they will be out of business. It's in their best interest to make sure that doesn't happen. Arnett's Market, any one of you been there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 2:30 in the afternoon when school lets out? They only allow 3 kids in at a time. They've got hard liquor everywhere, and they have to manage that, otherwise they lose their license. Valero, the same situation we've already talked about. I've already heard a lot of folks talk about that. You know, the idea that the city of Yucaipa's job is to somehow get involved in ABC's business is nonsense. The idea that the school district should be involved in anything except educating children, in my opinion, is nonsense. If you look at these conditions that the school district has sort of outlined, you know, locking those boxes in the morning at 7 a.m. is probably doable. Locking those boxes at 2:30 is probably doable. But major school events such as dances, football games, that's a nightmare waiting to happen. They can't manage that. They've got to know when these events are going on. I believe that as a citizen, that land there predates that school. That land was there when this planet was created, before that high school was there. The gentleman that bought that property still has rights. That property is his, and he has a right to build that there. Our job as a city is to make sure that it's within the code, and your job as a planning commission is to make sure it's in the code. It's not our job to try to figure out what's safe for kids. And I'm all for safety of children, but that's a bigger job than this planning commission is qualified to deal with. And I will say that we have a fantastic police department. We have 4 park rangers now. We have plenty of ways to make sure, in conjunction with Circle K, to make sure that we don't sell alcohol to minors, which is in fact against the law. Thank you for your kind attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you very much. Ben, that it?
Yeah, no other public comments, so.
Okay, with that, we will close it to public hearing, and we'll move to commissioners. And Mr. Landon, I got a question for you, sir. The traffic coming on the 12th Street is coming towards the high school. Is there gonna be a right-hand turn lane onto Yucaipa Boulevard, separate from the straight-through turn?
Coming
Follow?
down south on 12th Street to Yucaipa Boulevard, there's a left turn lane and I believe a through right. I was just looking at it a moment ago on my phone. So coming down out of the high school there, is that what your question was?
Or no, from 12th Street heading to the high school. Okay, now I come out of the Circle K and then I'm on 12th Street. I'm gonna make a right turn, but the traffic going into the high school, are we gonna have 2 lanes there?
We'd have to look at the dimension of that, the width of that lane right there. I believe it's just enough for one.
Yeah, there's not a designated left turn lane from 12th Street onto Yucaipa Boulevard, so it would be a through and right combination lane.
I think he's asking if there's a right turn pocket.
Right, is there a right turn
No,
lane?
there's not a designated right turn only lane.
So if you pull out during those school hours, traffic is backed up 12th Street, clear to Avenue D. Person will never be able to get out of there.
If I may, if they're trying to turn right on Yucaipa Boulevard, they could use the entrance off Yucaipa Boulevard and use that to get and travel.
Correct.
Because there's a driveway along Yucaipa Boulevard, so they could certainly
I
do
was
that.
just, I mean, I'm sure they did their traffic study, but I was just curious if they had that right, if that's something they put in there.
So there is no depression for it, there is no,
There's no-
it's not there, so, because traffic backs up on 12th in the mornings badly. And that might be something Circle K wants to consider just for traffic flow, even if it's not conditioned. Because you're gonna have gridlock in the mornings there where people can't even get into the station if they're trying to buy one of those quick meals in the morning, a sandwich for kids.
Yeah,
So,
but we didn't condition that for Dutch Brothers, and we're gonna have the same issue.
right.
So, I mean, you either go during those hours or.
I wasn't here for Dutch Brothers,
Oh,
but
all
I'm
right,
just
we either
asking.
go or you don't.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right.
and that's gonna be even worse. you
Yeah.
know, At that location,
Yeah.
so.
This is right at the entrance, and the same, from dropping kids off
Yep.
there for a number of years. I
Yeah.
know how impacted that intersection.
The Yucaipa Boulevard backs up all the way past 10th Street. Those cars waiting to turn right.
Anyone else have any comments or?
Do we have to vote on this as one whole with this condition? We can vote on the conditions.
No, the condition,
Because
we
there is
just
no
don't,
condition,
we just
basically.
don't incorporate it.
Yeah, so,
Because-
We
so,
won't talk about this.
so alternate, so it sounds like probably the direction from the plan commission is if you do make a motion, it would be to add a condition for doing the security, the fencing around the detention basin, securing the trash enclosure, and then otherwise as presented, the conditions from the school district, you would then decide not to incorporate those, and that certainly, right now, the draft conditions that are presented do not include the school district's comments, and so that would be, it sounds like based on kind of the discussion so far, that would be the overall priority is not to include the school district, but then to include the site security
'Cause again, I think that's gonna be addressed by ABC if that's one of the conditions.
Yeah, let ABC do their job, and let's do ours. And with that, I'm gonna make the motion to approve case 17-144 CUP, the architectural and recommendations A, B, C, and D.
I'll second.
With the fencing.
Oh, yeah, are we doing that, and with the fencing condition
and other site security for the trash.
and other
enclosures.
security that's been mentioned, okay?
Not just the trash enclosure, but the
The detention
It's
basin,
the
yeah.
fencing and
The
that.
rear portion or kind of more obscure areas of the site, making sure that.
I'll second that
we work through that.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing,
I think, just for the discussion to be on the record, even though we're not requiring this to be a condition, it should be noted that it was heavily discussed, and Circle K, we love you, we welcome you to town, but take care of our kids.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys doing what you can to mitigate, to protect, that's like Mr. Markarian said, to protect our children. So, thank you guys.
okay, with that, no more, is call for a roll. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We got one opposed. Okay, thank you, okay, look forward to you being here. Wow. Okay, what's project, where are we on now? Oh, 5, I got it. Okay, the next one is, number 20-79, a special use permit and architectural review.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman Algauer. So this is item number 5, a special use permit and architectural review to permit an existing unpermitted 2,592 square foot detached metal horse stall cover, as well as a proposed new 2,400 square foot detached metal workshop located on a property 34580 on Avenue G. So as I mentioned, the property is located on the north side of Avenue G. The zoning is RL 2.5 or rural living with a minimum lot size of 2.5 acres. To the north is the Yucaipa Creek Channel, and single-family residences surround it to the east and west, as well as some vacant properties which are also zoned for single-family homes to the south. So the site plan indicates an existing 3,192 square foot single-family residence on site, as well as the metal horse cover that is to be permitted. It includes a 72 feet long by 12 feet wide covered patio area, as well as 6 individual stalls, which are 24 feet long by 12 feet wide. The proposed metal workshop is to be 2,400 square feet, and all existing and proposed structures fit within the RL 2.5 zoning setback requirements. The horse stalls are about 14 feet at peak height and are constructed of galvanized metal with wood panels flaking the base. The metal horse stalls are pretty atypical on ranch-style properties, and the wood panels provide some extra dimension and detailing. And the roof is painted to match the house, so this gives it a little bit more articulation. The workshop will also be painted to match the house, a tauber taupe color, and has a peak height of 18 feet. It has a roll-up door on the south and the west elevation. This is an existing photo of the site, and you can kind of see the color up here, but I believe you got colored elevations in your packets. The taupe color presented should match this pretty well. No initial public comments were received from the project notices. However, today we did get a brief letter that I provided and left up there in support of the project from a neighbor located at 34. Oh no, that's not his address. That's the address of the property. But and they're in support of the project and are hopeful that we approve it. The environmental review for this would allow for an exemption from CEQA based on Class 3 exemptions for small structures, as this is just to allow a metal horse stall cover and workshop as accessory uses on the single-family residential property. So it is staff's recommendation that we approve this project today, and I believe that the applicant is still present and can provide some more clarification, and I can hopefully answer some questions as well, too.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments on this one?
No public comment slips have been received.
Okay, did the applicant wish to make any comments? Okay, you don't have to. Well, we'll close the public hearing, move to commissioners.
My question would be, how hard is it to tear it down and move it 20 feet away from the property line? That's not, it's already there, right? So, yeah, I just moved to approve item number 5, which is case number 20-079 for the special use permit. And go ahead and direct the staff with items 1 through D.
A through D.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Looks great, great job.
Next item we have is case number 21-015, a special use permit and architectural review for an 18.5-foot metal barn.
So this is another special use permit for a 1,933 square foot, and as you mentioned, 18.5 foot tall metal barn, Chairman Alguer, located on a single-family residential property at 35534 Balsa Street. This property is on the north side of Balsa Street, is zoned RS20M, single residential with a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. There's institutional foster care services to the north, and then is surrounded by single-family residential uses with RS20 zoning on all other sides of the property. And just for clarification, the metal barn will be for personal storage. No animal boarding will take place inside the structure. We're simply kind of using that terminology based on the architectural features of the structure. So here's the site plan on the screen right now. It indicates an existing 2,425 square foot single-family residence on site, which includes a 700 square foot garage as well as a patio cover. The proposed structure is 1,933 square feet and is a metal barn, as I indicated, and is about 500 square feet smaller in size than the existing home. The structure fits within all RS20M zoning setbacks and is closest to the north or rear property line and is 12 feet off of that property line and outside of an equestrian easement that is also there. So the elevations are up on the screen right now, kind of a barn-style structure with a roll-up door on the front elevation. The color of the barn is proposed to be a Surrey beige color with accents on the base and trim in a Tudor brown. And I've included the colors on the main panels that it would be indicated with the beige color, and then at the base and the trim would be the Tudor brown. There's also windows on the west elevation to kind of provide some greater building detail and articulation. Here's a photo of the existing site and this is a duplicate. No public comments were received from the project notices. Again, because it's a small structure, it would be exempt from CEQA as per the Class 3 small structures exemption. And it's staff recommendation that we also approve this item.
Okay, thank you. And you say there's no public comments.
No public comments.
Okay, the applicant wish to say anything?
The applicant isn't present, but I
Oh.
can hopefully clarify any concerns.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. We'll move to the commissioners. We have any, Tony, you have anything?
I just had a question. You said the closest was 12 foot to a property line, but it shows 10 foot on the west, on the east side.
Maybe I was.
Is that right?
Let's see.
And then which
Yeah,
side?
10 feet from the east, sorry.
Okay, and the easement, the bridle path easement's on the north side, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So how close is it to the neighboring? I guess it meets the requirements, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, it meets the requirements. So it would be
Richard,
required
you-
to have at least a 10-foot side yard setback on one side, and the other could be 5, but they exceed that, so.
No, that's fine.
Okay, Richard, we have comments? Anything you'd like to say?
Not in this one, nope.
Nope. Go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
Well, this pretty much lines up with the rest of them we done over the
Yeah.
last 6 years, the painting, the everything. So I make a recommendation that we approve case number 21-015, special use permit and architectural review to include items A through D.
I second that.
We got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anyone weigh in down there? No. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, unanimous. Ben, you got any comments?
So we will not have a plan commission meeting for the next one in April, but we will most likely have a pretty full meeting for Cinco de Mayo. So looking forward to seeing you guys next month, and that's all I have.
Okay, that's it. We're adjourned.